I've just got back from the Practical Classics Restoration Show at the NEC. It's the traditional season opener and it's my favourite indoor classic car event because of its celebration of rare and rusty relics over priceless trailer queens. So in this video I'm going to talk through my personal A to Z of the cars that most caught my eye. A is for Avon Coachworks, who did the conversion on this incredibly rare 1983 Toyota Celica A60. It's one of just 3 ever built. The conversion looks really well done and the open top suits the Celica's geometric styling perfectly. We had a really good chat with the owner, Brian, who's on Twitter as Old Red Celica. It's a very solid car and it runs well, but cosmetically it's used rather than over-restored. It's just a really well looked after example of this incredibly rare car, and that's a great place to start our tour of the restoration show. B is for Bronze, which is the official name for the colour of this Talbot Matra Rancho. If you're a regular on this channel, you'll know I have one exactly like it myself. Well, not exactly like this, as mine hasn't been restored yet and it's very rusty. So I spent quite a long time photographing the bits underneath where this one has metal and mine doesn't. I don't know whether people thought I was a bit strange lying under an exhibit with my phone pointed at the underside, but needs must, really. I'm planning to make a start on mine soon, so look out for that in a future video. Which reminds me that B is also for Bulldog BDX, the king of penetrating fluids, which I'll be needing plenty of to dismantle the Rancho. So I stocked up on my supply at the show, and it was great to see the guys. C is for the C2 series Audi 100 here, complete with its 5-cylinder engine, a car you really don't see very often. This is just lovely. There were some other handsome cars here on the Club Audi stand, including 3 generations of Audi Coupe. C is for Citroens, of course, too. I didn't see a huge number of Citroens, particularly not the larger ones, but I think I may have missed some. This Ami was lovely. D is for Diesel. There weren't many heavy oil cars, there generally aren't at classic car shows, but lurking in this restored SD1 shell was the many-headed monster, a VM engine with a separate head for each cylinder, which means this is the very rare 2400 SD Turbo version. There were several big rovers around, including both SD1 and P6 in avocado green, a fantastic colour, several other P6s in various conditions from barn find to immaculate, and a P5 coupe with that gentleman's club interior they have, and this absolute honey of a very early 800 Sterling. E is for Essex, and specifically the Ford Essex V6 in this Reliance Scimitar that belongs to Danny Hopkins of Practical Classics. It's the wider SE6 version of the Scimitar, which is my personal favourite. See how I didn't put the Scimitar under P for Princess Anne? E could also be for eclectic, which is a good word for several of the regional club stands, like this one for the Black Country Classic Car Club. That's quite a mixture of cars, with something there for everyone, except maybe those who only have eyes for Fords. No wait, eyes for Italy, and we haven't got there yet. F is for Fords. There were so many Ford clubs that they had their own hall, but it was great to see the slightly more unusual ones represented well, like Corsairs and these Consul Capris. Extra points to the Corsair people for every single car being a work in progress, including rare 2-door and estate versions. There was a great mix on the Mark III Cortina stand too. This is what all Cortinas look like in my head. G is for Giulia, spelled the Italian way of course, for this is an Alfa Romeo, and it has the 2-litre version of that lovely twin-cam engine. You could eat your dinner off that rocker cover, and you could have your pudding off the 1300 GT Junior next to it afterwards. I've only just noticed that the Junior has what I now call Boris Johnson windscreen wipers. H is for Honda. There weren't many Hondas at all, and I didn't even know that this was one until I looked closely. It's a Honda 1300 Coupe belonging to Kirsten Tisdale of Practical Classics, and it's a new one on me. I might have to start buying the magazine again to find out more about it. I is for the Italians. As well as the Alfas I just mentioned, there was this pair of gorgeous Lancia Beta Spiders, and I had a good chat with some Lancia Beta forum folks. There was a very pretty and immaculate Fiat Topolino, and possibly my absolute favourite car of the show, this Fiat 127 Sport. It was great to meet and have a chat with the owner, who got the car as a project with the metalwork done, and then sorted out all the running gear and paint and this glorious interior. It just begs you to jump in and drive it round the lanes. Fabulous car. This barn find Alfetta was pretty special as well, very rare, and it looked pretty solid apart from a little bit of rot around the bottom of the rear screen. J is for Jowett and Javelin, which is what this is, a Jowett Javelin. It's one of my favourite early post-war cars and was an advanced design for the new age with its aerodynamic shape, flat 4 engine and loads of interior space. All of that, even the engine, was designed by Gerald Palmer, who then went on to create this, the handsome 1950s shape shared by MG, Wolseley and Riley. K is for Katie B, Wrenching Wench on YouTube and Twitter, who is the owner of this immaculate Mark II Scirocco that is the summer of 1990 distilled into car form. There was a Mark I Scirocco, a Scirocco Storm as well, looking most handsome. L is for Lotus, of course, and here's an Elite a bit like mine. This one belongs to Gary Mathers, who was in peak practice. He now has a classic car YouTube channel, so he's just like me, except for he's good looking and successful, and his Elite has paint that responds to a polish without falling off in lumps. So obviously I hate him. Nice car though, as was this Elan. And while we're on Lotuses, there was a Sunbeam alongside a row of its Avenger cousins. I've got a soft spot for Avengers, they featured strong in my childhood, and it's nice to see the non-Tiger versions getting some appreciation. M is for Manta, of which there was this little squadron. Check out the glitterflake paint on this Manta A. Wow. The wheels aren't really my bag, but it was beautifully executed. A much more unusual Opel was its bigger brother here, the 6-cylinder Commodore, which had been got up in General Lee regalia somewhere in its past, but has been de-stickered now that we've all found out what the Confederate flag actually stood for. M is for Morris, Ital and Maxi too, but I was about to be thrown out by the time I got to here, so sorry it's very rushed. You know what Maxis look like though. N is for Norway, a country whose GDP is only slightly more than the combined valuation of the contents of the RS Owners Club stand here. This Mark II Escort RS 2000 was very smart. The thing is, the prices of all of these fours has just become ridiculous now. O is for Oval Racing, which was the final blaze of glory for many cars like this amazing Austin 3-litre ambulance, and these Granadas, and the tank-like Farina Austin Cambridges and Westminsters. Closer examination shows that this is actually the queen, or rather princess, of all the BMC Farinas, with the 4-litre Rolls-Royce engine that denotes a Vanden Plas Princess R. While we're here in the wonderful Barnfind corner, O is also for Ormsby of Scarsbrick, as per this Austin half-ton van. These look like something from the 1950s, and they are, but they built them right up until the Marina took over in 1972. Amazingly, this is a really late one from 1970, and I do hope it gets to keep its character. P is for P76, the big 70s saloon from Leyland, Australia, and this is the first I've ever seen in person. It's a Targa Florio special edition, which seems a little bit like having a Cadillac Shelsley Walsh or a Humvee Monte Carlo, but we'll let that incongruity slide because it's glorious, especially inside. Talking of which, Audi Quattro fans will have to wait your turn because Q is for quality interiors. I'm going to give a special mention here to these MG Maestros and Metros. I have a real yearning for the grey mouse fur interiors here with the red piping, it just looks great. This Rover 220 Tomcat was right up there as well, especially this one in Nightfire Red with velour. R is for Renault. There were a few nice Renaults, but my personal pick of the crop was this early 17 in lovely original looking metallic green paint that suits it so well, and that pre-facelift dash with those hooded cowls like a row of pick and mix scoops. I bet you get some horrific injuries in that in a frontal crash. S is for 7, spelt like the Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt movie, which is one of various names applied to very early Minis like this one, which sports this epic aftermarket accessory, a fiberglass mini boot extension kit. This isn't an Austin 7, but a Morris 850, I think, but at least that means the boot won't have Gwyneth Paltrow's head in it, probably. T is for tetanus. Pet names for cars normally make my teeth itch, but tetanus seems quite an appropriate moniker for this hedge-find early Mini Metro, with its impressive array of sharp edges. It was clearly well past saving and donated its engine elsewhere to a racing Mini, but the owner, who has a shop blasting business, blasted half of it to reveal and preserve what happens to Metros when you abandon them on Bodmin Moor for a generation or so. It's fascinating and a great advert for his shop blasting business. U is for unregistered, like this Mark I Granada with just 120 miles on the clock, presumably from when it was delivered on trade plates. What would you do with such a thing? You couldn't register it as a new car, so I suppose you just have to leave it like this, as an exhibit. Fair enough, I suppose. V is for Volvo, and like a barbarian I'm going to lump in Saab there as well. I arrived at this part of the show very late and I couldn't do justice at all to either of the Swedish brands. Volvo had two imposing F88 and F86 trucks, and there were a Volvo 262C and a Saab 900 Turbo 16S there, which are two of my bucket list cars, plus this gorgeous little Saab 93. I was starting to think I really need to book for 2 days next year so I don't miss such wonders and breeze through in 30 seconds, when actually I'd really like to linger. V is also for VX490 and Victor, and indeed Vauxhall, which were very well represented here in FD and FE generations by the Vauxhall VX490 Drivers Club. I keep meaning to join this club in honour of my FE 2300S, so I must get around to doing that. W is for work in progress, of which there was quite a lot happening live, including a whole bunch of welding inside this tent so as not to blind any innocent passers-by. It's certainly warmer and drier inside the NEC than it is in my shed at the moment, so I was relatively jealous. The Capri boys even had some mannequins to fool people into thinking that they were working on their cars, while in reality they sneaked off for some tea and buns, no doubt. You can kind of respect that. W is also for World Cup Rally. The historic Marathon Rally Club had this fantastic stand with this Ford Capri that did the World Cup rallies in 1970 and 1974, racing from London to Mexico and London to Munich via the Sahara. And it had the London to Sydney Marathon BMC 1800 Land Crab here, and the London to Sydney MGB that I think belongs to the MG Owners Club. Fantastic to see these cars here restored and in full rally livery. X, we're more than halfway through now, don't worry. X is for X19, and there was a row of these little Fiat rockets. I've never driven an X19, and I'd really like to one day, so we'll see if we can make that happen. X is also for Extreme Plasma and their friends at Artec Welding, who had a brilliant collection of metal robots and a ram made out of spark plugs on their stand that I don't think were getting nearly enough attention. I thought they were fantastic. I'm a big fan of Artec's welding kit and their superb customer service, highly recommended, and in fact I dropped by Artec HQ in Tewkesbury on my way to the show, but that's a story for the next video. Y is for the yellow of this TR8. I think it's mimosa yellow, but M was full of Mantas and Maxis, and anyway, there's also a yellow TR7 estate prototype here as well. I've defended the hardtop TR7's looks in a recent video, but I fear this estate version may be a step too far even for me. There were various other Triumphs as well that I went past far too quickly as I was being chased out by the bouncers. Sorry about that. And so we come to Z, which is, of course, for Zermatt Silver, the colour of this fabulous matched pair of Audi Quattros. And in fact, it's also the correct colour for these Audi Quattro alloy wheels. I spent a happy time chatting with the owners of these brilliant cars, with my friend Ben Hooper as well, who has one in the family, featured on the Late Break Show channel a while back. And he was picking their brains very thoroughly, but luckily they had quite a lot of brains to pick. And last but not least, Z is also the energy efficiency rating of this 4-litre Jeep Cherokee belonging to James from the Rubbish Mechanic channel. James is actually not a rubbish mechanic at all, and apart from the dismal fuel economy, the Jeep is a very fine thing. Do go and check him out. He's also mates with Joseph here from Lloyd Vehicle Consulting, who thankfully I trust completely to have covered in depth all the things that I missed. My poor old feet were screaming for mercy when I got home from a day of walking and standing around the show, so goodness knows what it's like for everyone who's still there exhibiting and doing that for 3 whole days, as well as setting up and breaking down. Ladies and gentlemen, I salute your fortitude and thank you for making this all possible. And apologies too to everyone whose pride and joy I missed because I was too busy chatting to all the people I met, old friends and new. It's a great show. See you again next year.